Welcome back. Here we are live.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube tonight, so thanks for joining Strange Little Video. My name's Justin. With me is my co-host extraordinaire, Alec, and tonight we're going to talk about the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap. So hopefully you've had a chance to see this. We're going to be going spoiler heavy in our review, so if you haven't seen it, you may want to come back and check it out after you've had a chance to watch. If not, if you don't give a shit about getting spoiled, hang out and listen to what we got to say about it.
Yeah, this is our first time doing we're testing out doing this show live from here on out. If we can manage, we're trying out StreamYard. It seems to be the popular one everyone uses. So you will see the StreamYard logo on the top right now because we're using the free version until we, make the leap to pay. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and show this quick intro video and just really to test some things out. So.
Have to return some videotapes. Have to return some videotapes. Have to return some videotapes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, quick little intro there to the show.
So, Trap. I saw this Thursday.
I saw this yesterday.
Are you let's touch base on your feelings about M. Night here.
I mean, I've always enjoyed a lot of his movies. They've always been fun, different, I mean, everyone kind of knows the M. Night twist, right? He's always kind of usually got some twist ending. What is the Village? And then The Sixth Sense, I mean, he's just famous for so many of these things, right?
I was about to say, yeah, he's definitely, there's twists in a lot of these things that he's directed and written, but sometimes there's just not. So it's one of those weird things where people definitely expect a lot of twists from him, and they aren't really going to get that. So he did a couple movies before Sixth Sense, but his real breakout movie was Sixth Sense, and he wrote and directed that. And obviously, there's a big twist, and we can talk about that twist, I think, because that twist was talked about in what is that? 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler. There's a whole big thing about that movie on VHS in there. Basically, Bruce Willis is a ghost the whole movie. So it's one of those things like Darth Vader being Luke's father that a lot of people just don't even have the opportunity to watch it without knowing that already.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. It's kind of been spoiled to the mass public, right? A lot of his other twists aren't as well known as that one. I think that was the first one he's really had the big twist that was well known and a commercial success. And some of his other movies, like you said, have twists. There's plenty of them that do, and there's some of them that just don't have a twist that's as dramatic or as noteworthy as The Sixth Sense.
And then he wrote Stuart Little after Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
it starred Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, you can never discount. I mean, it's so interesting to see like what screenwriters can do and what directors can do. Just because they're going to direct something doesn't mean they're not going to write something that's completely out of something they would direct. So that's fascinating, especially for somebody like him, right?
Well, then you have Unbreakable, and later on you had Split in Glass. But Signs is probably my favorite movie of his, just because of aliens. The Village, again, that one has a twist in it. Lady in the Water, a lot of people, that one's I think that one's underrated, I'll just say. But
okay.
It's not great, and it's kind of weird, but there's something about it I like. The Village, I think, is great, too, which that's a movie that isn't even available on Blu-ray, but I do have the DVD of that. The Happening, see, that's an interesting one, too. That one's funny, and it's super fun to watch.
Yeah, I think I've only seen that one once or twice, right when it came out, just because it was so different. It's probably one I need to revisit. I probably really need to visit a significant portion of his catalog.
Well, there's some of these that I haven't even seen. I was thinking about doing an M. Night ranking, and I was like, well, shit, I don't want to watch some of these straight up. Like The Last Airbender from 2010. Everybody knows that was a terrible movie. Everybody who loves that anime that's based off just wants to murder that guy for that movie. After Earth, I didn't see The Visit either.
Okay.
That seems interesting. Glass, I obviously saw. I didn't see Old.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of them that I haven't seen, and it's partly, is that just because they didn't advertise those as much, or critical reviews weren't there? Like, I feel like just the trailer for this, from M. Night Shyamalan, when I saw the trailer, started seeing it this summer here, and it was really just been the past few weeks. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
it caught my interest because of that. But then you're naming off a fair amount of movies that I haven't seen, and I'm like, huh, why didn't those ever come up on my radar as being M. Night movies,
Well, these are more recent too. Like, so if I'm going in order here, Sixth Sense, Unbreakable Signs, The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening. That was like his original 2000s run from 1999 to 2008. Then he did Last Airbender, which is based on something else,
Mm-hmm.
And then people often credit Devil to him, but he did not direct Devil. He came up with the story. Somebody else wrote it, and he produced it. That's all.
Okay, so he's got a story credit on the movie, but he's not beyond that, really.
Yeah, but I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's about people in an elevator, and they realize that they're trapped in this elevator, and it's pretty fucking interesting, to be honest. I actually rather like it, but apparently the devil's in the elevator with them, and it's one of them.
Oh, okay. I haven't really heard much about that one. So
After Earth was the one starring Will Smith. I didn't see it. 2013. And then kind of everything he's done recently, Split and Glass were the only ones that I saw. He did Old and Knock at the Cabin last year, which I was interested in, but I didn't see.
Knock at the Cabin. Dave Bautista was in that, right?
Glancing at it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. I think I saw that on Amazon or something like that. That's actually a pretty good film. But to your point, it seemed like Glass and Split just were heavily advertised as M. Night movies. It just seems like sometimes they're not really throwing these out into the world as like, hey, here's an M. Night Shyamalan movie,
Old, I remember kind of being interested in that movie, and it came out in 2021 where the people were aging and shit.
Okay.
I remember them marketing that one, but yeah. And then he produced The Watchers earlier this year, the movie by his daughter.
Okay.
And obviously Trap stars his other daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty interesting to see. And then he had a pretty significant cameo in Trap, which I was quite impressed with.
It was funny. It's just like, all right, here he is again.
Yeah, and he does cameos in a lot of his films.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of them that I can think of.
Yeah, and sometimes they're bigger than others. I thought his role in this one was pretty cool because basically he's playing a family member of the performer in there, Lady Raven. So this movie, the trailer really kind of sets it up as a thriller movie about a killer, right? And then obviously they pretty much already told us in this trailer that Josh Hartnett's character is this murderer they're trying to capture.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think there's any surprises going into the theater after that if you've seen the trailer for this. Now, this is a movie. I wish they wouldn't have given so much away in the trailer, but there's not really a way to do it without that, right? There wouldn't really be much of a trailer for this movie without that.
This thing is, this movie has so many things I like about it, and like a couple things that make me want to be like, all right, I wish this movie didn't exist, but at the same time, I do. Obviously, I like Josh Hartnett. I like M. Night enough that I can forgive most of the things that are dumb. We'll get into the things that I think are tremendously dumb later, but
okay, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we can just kind of go through play by play of the movie here, and we obviously start out parking at this concert, right? So we get to see his minivan. He finds a parking spot. His daughter Riley's there with him, and she's singing along, and we learn that they're going to this Lady Raven concert. She's singing along the songs and everything. So,
yeah, it's pretty typical. Like it's kind of fun. It just kind of feels like, oh, you're going to this concert with them. And
yeah, it does.
It's a little cringy. You're like, this little girl's annoying, but it's not because like, the actor or anything. It's just like that's the character is kind of this pop artist obsessed kid, like psyched going to do one of their favorite things. Any kid would be annoying in that situation, so I can think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it's obnoxious in a way that's You know, we've all
endearing.
experienced, yeah, we've all experienced it, right? You know, we are either that kid at one point in time, or you know somebody like that. You know, I think everyone knows somebody that just obsessed with a pop artist like that at this level.
Yeah, for sure.
The big thing that had me worried about this movie, just from the trailer, was like, how are you going to have a whole fucking movie just told from like a concert venue, and an enclosed one at that?
Well, I kind of wish it all was enclosed because the kind of the third act we'll get to later does not take place at the concert venue. And by the way, we are going to spoil this because fuck it, we're
Yeah.
going to be here talking about it long enough.
Yeah. And so automatically, you know, we see that Cooper's this kind of a guy that's just he's got these nervous tics. Josh Hartnett does a really good job in this film. And because this character has lots of layers to him, like where he's trying to be enthusiastic for his daughter, he's trying to embarrass her a little bit, but he's also like fucking paranoid and really worried about what's going on.
Yeah.
And to me, that's fascinating because, you know, we've got this character that has a lot of layers, but he's also a dad, kind of this family man. But we also already know that he's a killer, right?
Yeah.
If you saw the trailer, like you pretty much know.
It's actually pretty crazy. So for a while, you're kind of just like, all right, when are we going to start seeing hints of this? You eventually see that where he's like in the bathroom, secretly checking of the footage of his victim, and he kind of is like he's nervous about all the cops, but he doesn't realize what's up until he asks that t-shirt guy.
Yeah.
Which I thought the t-shirt guy. Let me see if I can see his name here. What was his name? Spencer? I don't know. I'm looking at the cast here trying to figure it out. But either way, he did a great job, and it was an interesting character. And the way that M. Night filmed that is what made it so unsettling. Like,
So that character's name is Jamie, I believe, played by Jonathan Langdon.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, he's great in this movie. He's an interesting character, and you know, he goes out of his way because Cooper, you know, has Riley give this last shirt available at the moment to like another girl that really wants it, which is interesting, right? Like trying to be a good parent. And then Jamie comments like, oh, you know, you're a good man for doing that kind of a thing. So Cooper has this like way of disarming people just by being like casual and friendly and everything. And we kind of see him manipulate people throughout this film.
Yeah, he's really great at that. I don't know. I've only seen maybe like 4 or 5 movies with Josh Hartnett in them, and usually they're horror movies, so I haven't seen him play this type of character yet. And what I really like about this movie is that he's pretty much our protagonist. So the whole movie, I'm rooting for him. I hope this motherfucker gets away and chops up more people, as fucked up as that is.
Yes, and I think that's pretty fascinating too, right? Because you are hoping that he gets away from this. You're like, oh shit, how's he going to get out of this, right? And he keeps encountering all these challenges, and he keeps just outsmarting people.
Yep.
So,
some of the other interesting things, I think Kid Cudi as the Thinker was a very weird and interesting role. I like how he was flirting with Josh Hartnett, essentially.
That was pretty funny at the end, like where he just kind of, and that wig that he has on is so awesome, and like kind of like looks at him.
Yeah, that role is like, okay, I can see Kid Cudi really being in some other stuff. Now he was in X, and he was in the Bill and Ted 3. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder what else he's in. I know he's been in other movies though. He's been.
Well, yeah, he's got some chops there, and like, you know, it looks like he's just really working his way to having a starring role or something, right? Just kind of working his way through these characters, and he has a good charisma and presence on screen.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed. I mean, he doesn't have a bunch to do in this, but it's fun enough.
Yeah. And then obviously we learn that there's this FBI profiler there that she's trying to help solve this case, which is pretty good, right? And then we start seeing these flashbacks to Cooper's, what we learned later on is Cooper's mom, right? We just see him having these flashbacks of this woman in there, which very much gives me Psycho vibes. It's very much Norman Bates and his mother is like they're still haunting him.
See, I was thinking of Friday the 13th, especially because the later scene where the woman starts berating him, Lady Raven does in the car. So that was reminding me of the scene. I think what is that? Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yeah, I think that's
One of the early ones
second
there,
one,
where
yeah.
somebody's like, puts on the sweater of his mom and is yelling at him.
Yeah, I
Like
think
that.
that's 2.
Yeah, it was given that.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you had those vibes because I immediately went to Psycho and I was like, okay, this is very much Norman Bates, unhealthy relationship with his mom. Something's really fucked up there, but like causing some of this, and like the mom knew he was a nut job, and I don't know if she looked out for him or tried to protect him, but clearly she's passed away. So I thought that was an interesting element just to start see her showing up throughout this.
Yeah. So this is what's interesting. I was reading about the development, and Shyamalan was very into Purple Rain when he was making this movie, essentially. Just the way the music and the story flow together.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it is a unique movie because I mean it's all original music that's in this, right? And I don't know if it's all original to this, but I mean it's all an actual performer, and I think that's Salika.
Yeah, Salika
Actually,
Shyamalan.
yeah, and so she actually is a pop artist, right? She's got recording
Yeah.
credits on this. When I was watching the credits through the end, I was like, okay. I was wondering if there's like an album that coincides with this.
There is. You can listen to all these songs on Spotify.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
I
I mean, I
listened
like
to a few.
I like things that are like that, where
Yeah.
all those songs written for this movie and then recorded for this movie.
They were by her, and that song she played with Kid Cudi as the Thinker, they released that and everything on there too. It's pretty cool.
Nice. So that's pretty fascinating, and obviously, there's some, they say Taylor Swift influence just like on a pop star this level, and I'm like, okay, that's fine.
It says here also he pitched Trap as setting Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert.
Okay.
Which is interesting enough just because Longlegs was very Silence of the Lambsy.
Okay.
And people were comparing it to that, and I don't think either of them is comparable to it, but hey.
So when we talk about Josh Hartnett as Cooper, I read a brief little article or a snippet of an article that basically said that he based his character off real life people he knows in Hollywood that are just like so fake and so charming and so endearing that just have this like fucking dark side to them. I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. To me, that really stood out as like, all the fucked up things we hear going on behind the scenes, and, all the allegations and all those things that happen to people in the industry. And I think we're finally at a point where there's some reckoning to that, but it was very fascinating to see that he based his character on that. And you see like that conflict in there with him. And then you just see that he's like lying throughout and very quick witted, able to think on his toes.
So, yeah, I just enjoy Josh Hartnett in general. He was in, the main things that I really like him in, obviously, are The Faculty, 30 Days of Night. He's less appealing, but still fun in Halloween H2O.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor. I actually watched a video of him recently, like talking about all his roles on YouTube for one of those movie channels.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so 30 Days a Night, he's pretty good in that, right? He plays the sheriff up there, and this is a very different role for him, though. This role didn't remind me of anyone else he's played, which I liked. I like when an actor has some depth and doesn't get pigeonholed into like one style of character.
Yeah, he was in Sin City also, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he was actually the guy, he shot like the test footage with Robert Rodriguez. That was what he was talking about, and that's pretty interesting.
So you said there's some things in this movie that you didn't like that you thought were pretty bad. So like, have we come across any of those yet?
No, most of that is in the third act.
Okay.
Before we get to that, I do want to talk about this just because I just now noticed this. I have the Trap Wikipedia pulled up here, and I'm just kind of glancing at it as I need information.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that it's also influenced by Operation Flagship. I'm imagining you don't know what that is because I didn't, but it's I think I have heard of it though.
Okay.
It was a sting operation jointly organized by the United States Marshals Service and the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. that resulted in the arrest of 101 wanted fugitives on December 15th, 1985. The fugitives voluntarily went to the Washington Convention Center, responding to an invite by a fictitious television company to claim two free tickets to watch the Washington Redskins home game against the Cincinnati Bengals and for a chance to win tickets to Super Bowl XX. A total of 166 marshals and police officers were involved in the operation, with undercover personnel posing as tuxedo wearing ushers, cheerleaders, MCs, caterers, mascots, and maintenance staff.
That's intense. Why haven't they made a movie about that?
I was about to say, if I'm scrolling down, I bet there's been like some TV movie in the 90s or something, I bet. No. Operation, and inspired a scene in the movie 1989 Sea of Love. And then it references Trap here. That's interesting, though. Like, that's somewhat based in reality, the situation anyway, the framing.
Yeah, that concept of like, you could use a method like this to really catch people.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, and so throughout this thing, like, right, we see Josh Hartnett get really close to being caught as Cooper as he's going through here, right? He just keeps finding ways to get out of the theater after Jamie tells him, what's going on. And Jamie's like, don't tell on me. But that's the first time we also learned that Cooper works for the fire department, which becomes a big plot point later on. Because at first I'm like, oh, is he just lying to him to bullshit him? Like this guy just seems like a manipulator. So did he say that on purpose? But that turns out to be like a real fact that he's not lying. So about his character. So I like that aspect of it. The first thing in this movie that did piss me off, though, and I'm surprised it didn't bother you as someone that's worked in the restaurant industry, is the oil scene.
Oh, I mean,
the fryer oil scene. I'm like,
mostly pissed me off because the employee just stood there and stared at it. You would know, if you're a fry cook, at least enough information to know that if you see some shit going down like that, you're not going to stand right there. You're going to probably, if you're a normal human, you're just going to turn the machine off and then get the fuck away from it, or just get the fuck away from it at least. Like, Jesus, she just stood there and watched. Like, maybe if you want to die.
Well, and I'm thinking like, they just conveniently had those giant glass oil jars sitting out in the open. I'm like, those being big glass jars like that.
Well, that's first of all, they wouldn't be glass. They would have big ass, like they come in cardboard cases, but they are completely like this material or thicker, plastic on the inside.
Yeah, and the thing about that is like, okay, so you can buy big glass bottles of oil, but that's usually like for consumer grade stuff at home. That's not going to be what they're using at a restaurant like that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
If oil comes in a glass bottle, it's probably a decent brand or a decent style. If it's coming in plastic, that's going to be the shit they're using at a convention center or a fucking venue like that. So that was the first thing. And I was like, okay, I didn't let that really bother me in the moment, but I was just like, suspend disbelief because we're watching a movie. But I just thought that was kind of dumb. And the fact that that girl didn't have any glass stuck in her face, like they just showed like the burn marks from the oil. I'm like, there'd be fucking glass all over her face too, sticking in there that they would have been digging out. The girl probably would have been blinded completely, not just like burned. So,
yeah,
I was surprised they didn't make that more gruesome than they did, honestly, because that would have been terrifying to see in a real person.
Was this rated R or PG-13? I don't even.
Let me pull it up here and see.
It's not saying. I'm not seeing right on here on the Wikipedia, but
let's see. PG-13. That's why. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the things that really pissed me off.
Well, do you want to get through the story up to there? Because I was just kind of going around with all the bullshit he was doing there in the.
Well, some of that is like, yeah, he's acting a little creepy and sus for sure, and the cops are really dopey. But that stuff is like easily ignorable. I can suspend the disbelief and watch the movie for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for
totally.
Sure.
Right, he gets his hand on the cop's radio in there, and like coincidentally finds donuts and the sugar in the break room when he's over there like eavesdropping.
I've seen a lot of people complaining that he outs himself as the killer, which is so dumb to her.
Oh, to Lady Raven? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out when I was watching it, like, all right, there's got to be a reason he's doing this. And after I watched it and come out of it, I'm still trying to think, is there a strategic reason he like actually did that? I mean, it's obviously so he could get out, I guess, but isn't there, there could have been a better way to fucking get out of there. And even if anybody interviewed you, what are you going to say? Like,
Well, I think they were going to find the tattoo if he got sat down and interviewed, is what they implied, because they showed that tattoo on his wrist.
well, they couldn't interview everyone on the way out, though, is my point. Like, they were stopping everybody and having at least a look at them and maybe asking them questions or their names or, you know, something like that. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he could have just slipped out of there somewhere regardless.
Yeah, that was
Um,
an interesting decision there. When I watched that didn't necessarily bother me. I just felt like that was his way to get her to like bypass security, right? You know, since clearly she was working with the FBI profiler, right? You know, she was aware of it, offered to do it for the concert and everything. And so I took that as his way of manipulating her to get them through security without having to be interviewed.
yeah.
But I could see why that would piss you off. I mean, it's definitely kind of one of those things. You're like, what? You're just gonna fucking tell her that you're the killer? Like, I think I'm the person you're looking for. And you're like, what?
I figured, well, she have something more to do with this, but it wasn't her. It was his wife.
Uh-huh.
So he just I think the reason he's doing it is because he thinks she does know, and he thinks that she's the one who set it up and everything, but it ends up being his wife, which is arguably, if you want to argue, that's the twist of the movie. If you want to argue that there has to be an M. Night twist, which I don't think there does, but
No, and to your point, I do think that's a little bit of a twist, but that dialogue conversation there, um, you know, like that was kind of a big reveal, but it wasn't a twist reveal, I don't think. It was just
right.
a big reveal in that final act. So
A twist is like a reveal that actually changes your perspective on the whole movie, I feel like. So,
yeah, and I didn't feel like my opinion of her changed at all.
or perspective on anything that happened. Like, I was
Yeah,
like, all
no.
right, well, whatever.
Yeah.
So they go home. She
In the
starts
limo.
antagonizing them and is like, yeah, I'm gonna go inside too, which, all right, that's dumb. Doesn't make any sense. Stupid.
Mhm.
Then they get inside and she's like, oh, I'm gonna play a song and now I'm taking your phone, and then, oh, let's take a picture because she can't find her phone. Oh, we'll just use your dad's. And then she goes in the bathroom with the phone and he loses his shit just enough to look insane to his family, but like also it's kind of like, shouldn't this guy I don't know, you expect him to just break the fucking door down and get in there and before she can do something, because it's just like, you already look fucking crazy to your family. You may as well go full blown. You locked them in a room supposedly.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a head scratcher. Like in the moment, I was just like, why hasn't he broken this door down? Because you know that's an inside bathroom door. Like one
Well,
kick and that thing's fucking opened.
I'm just thinking, man, there's got to be a better way to do all this scene here.
Yeah.
Like take another pass, M. Night, at this draft. Give me another draft here.
Yeah. And then the other curious thing there was like, once they got them out of the house safely and everything, and the police finally showed up, then he'd had this exit out of the house, right? You know, after he gets to the point where he's about to leave the garage and then the family's there in the way. And, you know, I don't know if he's remorseful there or if he's just like caught in the moment, but he goes back inside and like for a brief second, you're thinking, okay, like, is he going to commit suicide in here? It's like, what's he going to do? Like he's caught. Obviously she knows he's the killer. And I say she, I mean, Lady Raven. And they surround the house and then he escapes through this little tunnel. Okay. That tunnel's fine. That didn't bother me because people do weird shit like that all the time.
Well, that doesn't happen then, does it?
Um,
Doesn't he gets in the car with her and he's about to leave and the family's outside.
yeah, I already talked about that. And then they go back, you know, he closes the garage door once they're out there because the cops
Well,
show
yeah,
up.
they leave and then he gets his fucking gear on somehow, the SWAT gear, gets in her limo after he escapes and drives her off and then randomly parks and is like, because there's a crowd there or whatever of Lady Raven fans. I don't know where the fuck he drove, but And then becomes the most triggering scene of the movie. That's just so stupid because the man teleports outside of the fucking car.
Yeah, there's no fucking way and he would have been able to get out of that car without anyone seeing him, right?
I can't suspend disbelief on that one.
No, that one was like, what the fuck? And then, obviously the cops show up there finally after that, and he's walking off in a change of clothes again, because he sees that bag of clothes in the front seat that's like Lady Raven merch. Well, I'm like, it doesn't look like he's wearing that, though, when he gets out. He's wearing like a hoodie or something else. It doesn't
And
look like concert merch.
people would be able to watch him change it. It's not like those front windows are blacked out.
No, just the rear of the limo, right? It's not like there's a way back, even if he went through the window. So no one watched this guy change and like set this thing up as a hat there, set up the helmet, and like to set on what, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to have things that would suspend that or support that. You can't just set a helmet on a pile of clothes in the front seat of a car and think it's going to hold up.
So then he's getting the he goes back home or whatever, and his wife's there, and he's like confronting her, and we have that. He's just like, all right, I'm going to take my shirt off now because I'm Josh Hartnett. And I'm not complaining about that. I thought it was very weird because it almost comes across as like that, just like, oh, it's Josh Hartnett, we got to have his shirt off. But also, if you put it into the character's mind, it's just like this weird display of like, I'm the man here, and this kind of weird shit to intimidate her. But this scene also triggers me to no end because this dumb motherfucker, first of all, they're both dumb. She's dumb for thinking a pie, like, oh, sure, we can do this. You can kill me, but we got to have some pie first. And then he's dumb for being like, sure, let's have that pie. And then he's also dumb for eating that fucking pie. Like, are you fucking kidding me? A 3-year-old could write this. What the hell is happening?
Yeah, see, that was odd because you're like, okay, so she knows it's him, but he's just now catching up to it, like right where there's this whole like admission scene, and is it even an admission scene where they have to explain to you what the fuck is going on? And then we get that random scene where, they see that, oh, what was his name? That Spencer is alive and freed,
yeah.
right? Some Lady Raven's followers like find out where it's at, like they help rescue the guy. He wigs out about that, and then like there's this whole admission scene between Rachel, which is Cooper's wife, and Cooper, and he spells it out for exactly what happened. So, you recognize this and that, and you thought I was having an affair, but it didn't feel right. And like this whole like long exposition here about what the hell's going on. And they basically spell it out to you and spoon feed it to you of what happened.
Mhm.
And that was kind of like, what the fuck? Because like I said, the first 2/3 of this movie, up until they leave the concert venue, were pretty entertaining, right? A few things here and there aside that could have been better, but for the most part, I'm like, all right. And then you get to this last part and you're like, I don't think that like these long exposition scenes are, if you have a good movie, you don't need to fucking explain everything and feed it to the audience like that. Kind of was annoying as shit.
Sorry, I'm texting my Taco Bell order right now. I gotta get it.
Gonna cross the border tonight, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get. We're gonna watch some Lost tonight. Not to be off subject, but yeah, let's see. Allison Pill is his wife.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking while I'm watching this, I've seen this motherfucker in something. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to look up right now and see what else she's been in. Because she did a good job with the material she was given. It's just that I thought the character was making stupid fucking choices. Holy shit!
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's why I'm recognizing her.
Mm-hmm.
She's the goddamn drummer for the band.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Hail
Yeah, so
Caesar. I did see that as well.
yeah, she had a good role there, but like I said, it was just the fact that they had to spell out everything. And then, when he outsmarts the cops by getting out of the limo, I'm like, okay, that's extreme. And then I'm like, why did the profiler like just leave her alone at the house and not have like cops hiding inside the house, Like you figure there's some sort of a setup when she's in the house alone, like waiting for him and like, oh, we've got 2 patrol cars outside. And you're like, why did you make a note of that? Because that didn't seem to matter. Like he still got his way back into the house.
Yeah.
And then they give you the whole thing like, hey, we mentioned he was a firefighter earlier because he's using all these abandoned properties to hide his victims and kill them. And so he's got all these places all around town. So that's feasible. Like there's a lot of elements on this that are really good on paper, but the execution of that final act was just like, in the moment, I wasn't really bothered by it just because I was like enjoying the movie for the first time. Right. But then when you analyze it, you're just like, the fuck? That was just kind of like uninspired.
Okay, so then the bike thing.
Mm-hmm.
He breaks off a piece of the fucking bike without anybody noticing. What the fuck is this trash?
Yeah, he stands up and like steals the spoke off of a bike. I'm like, I don't think this.
Silently?
Yeah, no one hears him ripping a piece of metal off of there.
It should have been something else. I mean, yeah, sure. Anything else off of the bike would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have come up with fucking something, but not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and whose bike was that? Because the little brother whose bike was like that looked like a female bike, and I don't know if that really matters in the grand scheme of things, right? Kid can ride whatever bike they want, but with the streamers and the color of the bike, that wasn't like a teenage girl's bike that's damn near old enough to drive. Right? That didn't feel like it was Riley's bike, and I think that was her name, his daughter, right? Riley.
Yeah.
And
I don't
so
know.
there's just some things that were very peculiar in here that were just like, seems like they were in such a hurry to get this thing done that, there's a couple of revisions they could have done in the writing process that would have made it better.
Absolutely. I think the only reason, like, it's also just Josh Hartnett's performance is good enough that it's like, okay, this isn't a bad movie. It's just, damn, what it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, hell, even Salika Shyamalan was great in this. Like, she does a great job with her role and her performance and everything. She sells the pop star persona really well. And like those two, like she has like a real fear in her character there, but some of the writing is just kind of like, whoa.
Well, it's interesting because, we sometimes talk about how movies come out in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie has 2 fucking counterparts. It
Okay.
has Long Legs, which just came out, just because it's a movie about a serial killer, and it's been compared to Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Roughly the same month. Then there's also Smile 2. I never saw the first Smile, but I'm sure you've seen the trailers for it now. We've been going to the theaters enough. I've seen it 100 fucking times. But it's about a pop star.
Yeah. Okay.
Going through the, scenario. So, very interesting. Horror movies with pop stars.
Yeah. And
New genre.
I don't know. Like when I walked out of the theater, I wasn't like super pissed or anything. I was like, okay, that was pretty decent. But the fact that there wasn't like the traditional M. Night twist in this, and then, if you stayed through the credits, which I always do, not just because I'm trained for post-credit scenes, but, when you have friends that work in the industry, you always stay through the credits. Just it's respectful.
Well, hold up now. Don't break an arm jerking yourself off.
Double Dutch rudder?
No.
I know. I'm just saying. Don't break your arm. You don't have to touch it. Double Dutch rudder. Anyway, yeah, so the mid-credit scene with Jamie was hilarious.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
That was very relatable. And then obviously, they show that Josh Hartnett's character Cooper takes those fucking handcuffs off with just one little fucking spoke of a bicycle. And you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, God. You know what's fucked up is... Do you remember the Jack Frost horror movie?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this reminded me of. The ending there where he's doing that, because there's a scene early on the movie, before he has the car accident and he's human and he's like in the back of a truck and it's about to crash and speed, and it just like the angle on his face and he's smiling. He's like, "Oh yeah," I think that's what he says. It's just
Something cheesy. Yeah. And then they're like, okay. And then the thing with the scene like that, like this motherfucker's in an armored vehicle with fucking SWAT agents around him everywhere. And like, you think that, what's he going to do? Fucking stab one of them with the spoke before they fucking just execute him?
Well, that's the thing, is they were trying to demonstrate that he was a little bit fucking crazy when he's getting tased and he's still plunging the eyes out of a guy. That was pretty cool. Like to see like, oh, this guy is actually maybe a little bit formidable too. He's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, and that was the only time they really demonstrated that like he had a physical prowess to him, right? To actually be capable of murder, because everyone's like, "Oh, they're setting it up for a sequel." And I'm like, "But are they?" Because I would much more be interested in a prequel series about this guy being a serial killer going around fucking town and terrorizing the town. To me, that's a much more fascinating movie than a sequel. Like, I really don't give a shit. They caught this guy. I'd rather see him kill those 12 people in one way or another and have that be the next story if they actually want to go down that road for this.
If they were going to sequelize this, they would definitely go the way of Hannibal.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's on the run, has changed his fucking name, is working at like an art museum in fucking Italy or some shit, eating people from. Anyway.
Well, then the other weird thing, like Riley runs up and gives him a big hug. Like, you're gonna hug your dad, and he's a fucking serial killer now. Like, that was just such an odd thing to do. Like, I get that it's your dad, but you think there'd be like, Dad, how could you do that? Like, yada yada yada. You think there'd be something there that would show like anger or confusion or upset, instead of just like hugging him and like acting like you're gonna miss him. Like, what?
My dad hasn't killed anyone that I'm aware of, and I haven't hugged him in quite a while. So
yeah. So it's just one of those things that very peculiar things in this third act of this movie. But
yeah, the first two acts, again, I can suspend all my disbelief. While we're at the concert, I'm having a great time. As soon as we leave, man, that movie should have ended quicker. Or like, here's a bummer thing. This movie's, what is it, an hour and 40 or something?
Hour and 45, yeah, with credits, right? So
felt like 2 hours and 15 minutes. The movie itself, because I was shocked that the movie started when I saw it at 3, and at like 5:04, I was walking out, and I was like, huh. I felt a lot longer, which is not a good thing.
This almost had some vibes that to me coincide with Jurassic Park, The Lost World, right? The Lost World, Jurassic Park, however you want to phrase it.
Oh, where it has 400 different endings. Every 5 minutes for the last 20 minutes, you're like, oh, there's the ending.
Yes. Between that and then the last act like keeps fucking changing. You're like, we're on an island, okay, in this we're in the concert venue, and then in the last act, all of a sudden everything's just fucking drastically changed, and we have all these scenes and places that we didn't expect we're going to go to. To me, it would have been a much more fascinating movie. Is like, how would you keep that contained all the way through to the end? Yeah. Right? And to me, like a natural thing to do, and just where my head was going, I thought he was going to be able to kill that profiler off, and they weren't going to catch him that way because he was going to be able to kill her.
Yeah.
And so I thought he's going to kill her so they couldn't like track him down because like they threw the scent off or whatever else. Especially like once he became aware of her presence in there. And to me, that would have been a much more fascinating third act because he would have had to get close to her with all those guards and everything around. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
What would you rate this out of 10?
Maybe a 7. Well, maybe a 6.5.
Okay.
And it's anything over a 5 is going to be rewatchable for me. 5 and up is rewatchable. So,
yeah, I may not watch this 20 times, but I will watch this at least once more. When it comes out on streaming or whatever on demand, I'll check it out again. I know my wife wanted to see it, so like sit down with her and watch it and take it in again. But for me, it's not one of those that's like, oh, I'm going to watch this every year, or this is going to be in like, something I want to revisit regularly.
Right.
I would say, man, I got to go 6. And I would say 7, but that final act is just so, especially that limo scene. Like, how the fuck did he get out of the limo? That right there alone drops us to a 6 from a 7 for me.
Absolutely.
And like that scene, and some of the other scenes, like I said, you can forgive a lot, but it's like you can't get out of a public scene where people are live streaming and all of a sudden, like, no one knows you got out of the limo. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, that one triggers me to still think about.
Yeah, and like I said, when I walked out of the theater, I'd enjoyed myself enough, and I thought, okay, that was pretty decent, pretty decent. But sometimes you got to sit there and you got to break it apart and be like, okay, there's a fair amount of shit in this third act that just didn't do it for me. And I really wanted it to be better because, like I said, Josh as Cooper is fucking great. His performance is on point. And like everyone in the movie, I think does well for the role they were cast as. I don't think there's any necessarily bad acting. I think it's just the way the story plays out that could have been revised a little bit better, could have had a few things taken care of better. So,
yeah, 100%. I'm a big M. Night fan, so again, I will rewatch this for Josh Hartnett mostly.
yeah, I mean, his performance alone is worth the cost of admission. You know what I mean? I think he does a good job in this. This is one of his better roles, just where he's got a lot of depth to him. It's an interesting character because he's like this crazy murderer, but at the same time, he's very fucking socially outgoing, like very good at manipulating people, and just seems genuinely charming and likable. So,
And handsome.
well, yeah, that doesn't ever hurt either, right?
And then he takes his shirt off and is like eating pie shirtless. Josh Hartnett eats pie shirtless in this movie. That's the thing that happens. And
yeah, and so you said you thought that was, I got the.
I like
vibe.
that he's shirtless and eating pie, but not for the how they get there. Because eating pie shirtless is very weird activity, and Josh Hartnett's attractive, so you're like, yeah, sure, take the shirt off, buddy. And
Well, yeah, but
give me some of that pie. Feed me some pie, Josh. But the whole scene, that whole scene, just pisses me off too. He's a moron there. He's supposed to be. His character is supposed to be smarter than this.
Yeah.
We've seen him be outwitting police this whole fucking movie, and his wife, who's like, I mean, I'm not saying she's a moron or anything, but like,
yeah,
she.
I mean, she'd set him up by dropping a receipt off out of his wallet and ripped it there, and then she used his own drugs against him. Like, which is sure great. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds better on paper than it does in execution, right? And
For sure.
I don't know. I will say though, the one thing that was the redeeming act was that mid-credit scene where the merch seller was like, fuck, man, I got burned. And like that to me was like a good way to end the note after. And I think that tricked me too, because I think after seeing that and kind of chuckling and having a good laugh at the end of the movie, like I left in a better mood than I should have been. Because now that we've talked about this, I'm just like, yeah, had you talked to me right after I left the movie theater before I'd really thought about it, I may have been a 7 or an 8 easily on this movie.
Yeah.
But then, like, after really breaking it down and looking at it, you're like, no, 6 out of 10. And that's still, you can graduate with D's. It's not going to be a good GPA, but you can do it. So.
Yeah. Well, that's probably about all I've got to say about that. So.
Yeah, just in the grand scheme of things, like with M. Night's most recent stuff, how did you feel about this compared to, like, say, Glass?
I like this better than Glass for sure. I'll definitely I've never rewatched Glass.
Okay.
I saw it and I was just like, I'm good on that one. Unbreakable, I think, is fucking awesome. Split is good also. It's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
and how they set that up. It's just there's a lack of climax in Glass.
Yeah.
And the ending that they go with, I get what they're doing and why they're doing it and everything like that, but it just doesn't, you know what I mean? Just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. It just...
But from like 1999 to 2008, man, the guy was producing fucking bangers. Even the ones that people don't like Lady in the Water. I have a fun time with it. It's like a weird biblical story almost that takes place at like a fucking apartment complex. Have you ever seen it?
I have not seen that one, but I'm curious to see that now that you mention and saying it's underrated. So,
Like,
yeah,
you'll
'cause
probably watch it once and be like, all right, well, you know, that's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but it's not great either. But it has, you know, Paul Giamatti, Bryce Dallas Howard, Jeffrey Wright.
So
it's a pretty stacked cast right there.
Pretty good cast, yeah. Yeah, I just think that, like, you know, I don't want to say he's past his prime with the movies, but, you know, it's like...
Well, he has. This is what I do like. For a while, he kept trying to branch out. And recently in an interview, he was like, you know what? I've kind of decided, I realized that when people go, you know, they pick up a band's album or something, they're looking for a certain thing. And he's like, and they're doing the same thing when they go to an M. Night movie. He's like, so I'm no longer afraid of just doing thrillers. I'm just going to do thrillers the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. You know, like, if you're good at that, do that, but just take those extra time to revise those things. Make those revisions. Like, don't be afraid to revise. Like, I feel like there's other movies that come to mind that another pass or two at the script, and you could have cleaned up some of these issues that would have just made the overall picture much more enjoyable.
I think a lot. That's the thing. I think with Lady in the Water, I think could have benefited from some more script work. I think that's his big deal. He's just like rushes through it or doesn't have anybody do rewrites or take a look at it and tell him maybe they should fucking need some work. But Sixth Sense and Signs, absolutely like perfect. No notes. None.
Yeah, exactly. And the Sixth Sense I enjoy, but Signs is weird. I mean, I love alien movies and I love ghost movies too. So those obviously are great for their own stuff. But I mean, Signs really stands out in my opinion because it's this movie about like religion, but it's also about aliens. So it's like some really fucked up stuff. It's very...
Well, yeah, you wouldn't think as an atheist would think that I would like that story and think it's a great story, especially because at the end he goes back to being a preacher or whatever. But like, no, it's just perfect storytelling. It's beautiful. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, and it just fills you with existential dread because like there's these two conflicting things that traditionally wouldn't go well together, right? You know, we see all the ghost movies have like an element of religion, right? That's a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to have religion and aliens is a little more interesting in the way they pieced it together. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, if you're an M. Night fan, definitely see Trap, but look out of your way to...
Oh, shit. I was trying to give us some exit music on the way out.
And you just fucked it up.
Well, no, because it just like some small in the background, but it's playing from my computer speakers for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's weird. Did you
Interesting.
hear it?
Yeah, I could hear it. They're here.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to play it again. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, and let us know what you think in the comments. Did you fucking hate this movie? Is this movie a 3 out of 10? I thought a 6 out of 10 is pretty fucking generous.
Did you have to put a Band-Aid on your bean because you flicked it so hard during this movie when he took his shirt off?
He's eating the pie, too.
That's what I'm saying. He's eating pie.
Shirtless. If that's not an innuendo, I don't know what is.
we have a lot in common. You know what I'm saying?
All right. We'll see you next
time. Good night,
time.
everybody.